Shit fucked everybody up. Like, real game. You know what I mean?
Hold up, did Lil Tim just blow the lid off the King Von murder case in court? That's right, Lil Tim, the man at the center of all this drama, just dropped a bombshell that no one saw coming. And if you thought you knew who really killed King Von, you might want to sit down because the shocking truth is about to come out, and it involves one of Von's closest allies. Lil Durk, yes. You heard that right, Lil Durk's name has been dropped in court as the person allegedly behind King Von's death. Now the OTF boss, the man who was supposed to be Von's brother, is being linked to the murder in a way that has the streets and the media in complete shock. You thought it was all just street beef? Nah, this goes way deeper. Lil Tim's testimony is about to turn everything we thought we knew upside down. And you better believe the rap game is shaking right now. But here's the million-dollar question, is it true? Did Lil Durk orchestrate the killing of his own brother? Get ready for this roller coaster ride, because what's coming next is going to leave you questioning everything. Stay tuned, because the truth is about to be exposed in the most dramatic way possible. This case just went from shocking to absolutely explosive. The courtroom was packed. Cameras flashed, reporters jostled for the best angle, and fans from both sides of the rap game held their breath, waiting for something massive to drop. And then it happened. Lil Tim, a man who'd been in the headlines for months following the tragic death of King Von, stepped up to the stand with a revelation that no one saw coming. The bombshell? Lil Durk's name was dropped, and not in the way anyone expected. For months, the public had been wondering who really killed King Von. The streets whispered about a hit gone wrong, a random altercation escalating into something more. But now, according to Lil Tim, the truth was far darker, far more complicated. In a shocking turn of events, Lil Tim pointed to Lil Durk, his close associate, and said those words no one thought they'd hear. Lil Durk had a hand in it. He orchestrated the whole thing. The courtroom gasped. The media went silent. The rap game was on edge. You could feel the tension in the room. Lil Tim, the alleged killer, had just implicated Lil Durk, one of the biggest names in hip-hop, as the mastermind behind King Von's death. But why? Why would Lil Durk, a man who'd called Von his brother, be involved in such a cold betrayal? What could possibly make Lil Durk turn on the very man who had stood by him in the hardest times? The prosecutor was quick to seize the moment, urging the jury to consider the implications of what Lil Tim had just said. Was Lil Tim telling the truth? Or was he simply trying to save himself from a potential life sentence? What if he had been manipulated, like so many others before him, into doing someone else's bidding? The defense immediately jumped in, challenging the claims, stating that Lil Tim had no real evidence to back up such a serious accusation, but the damage had been done. The prosecution quickly presented more evidence: leaked texts, cryptic conversations, and even financial transactions linking Lil Durk to key players in the rap industry. The public was sent into a frenzy. Could this really be true? Could the very OTF boss, the man who had given King Von a platform, have been behind the most tragic betrayal in hip-hop history? Now let's step back for a second and look at the bigger picture. Lil Durk and King Von weren't just collaborators. They were family in the music industry. They were more than just artists from Chicago. They were part of a larger movement, a brotherhood that stood for loyalty, for the streets. Or so we thought. Von had signed with Lil Durk's label, Only the Family, OTV, and their bond was one of the most talked about relationships in rap. But behind the music, things weren't always as rosy as they seemed. Over time, there had been subtle hints of tension between the two. Lil Durk's rise to fame had been meteoric, while Von's star was quickly catching up. Was there jealousy? Was there a sense that Lil Durk's dominance in the game was being threatened by his own artist? Or more disturbingly, was there something more personal at play? At this point, Lil Tim's testimony wasn't just about him. It was about a larger conspiracy that threatened to expose the ugly underbelly of the music industry. His accusation that Lil Durk had orchestrated King Von's murder suggested that the betrayal went far beyond the streets. It pointed to a power struggle at the very top of the rap game, a battle over money, influence, and control that had gone horribly wrong. The streets had always known that the rap game was ruthless, but no one could have predicted something like this. The industry had long been plagued by backdoor deals, betrayals, and power struggles. But this was next level. The idea that Lil Durk, a man who had taken Von under his wing, could be involved in his murder was something no one could wrap their heads around. How far could the manipulation go? And if Lil Durk was behind it, what did that say about the true nature of the game? To make matters worse, new leaks from confidential sources began to emerge. These sources, who wished to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation, claimed that Lil Durk had been under immense pressure to make a business decision regarding King Von. According to one source, Lil Durk had been receiving threats from other major figures in the rap industry, figures who felt that Von's rise was becoming a threat to their own dominance. These sources claimed that Lil Durk had been forced into a corner with little choice but to take action. One of the sources, who allegedly worked closely with Lil Durk, stated, "It was clear as day that King Von was next up. The industry couldn't handle another superstar from Chicago." Lil Durk was told by those in power that something had to be done. Either Von would fall in line or they'd take him out. This revelation, though unverified, added more fuel to the fire. If Lil Durk had truly been manipulated by the powers that be, it would explain his role in King Von's death. And yet, it would still leave him responsible for the tragic loss of a close friend and business partner. Now, with this new evidence and a growing public outcry, the case was starting to snowball. The media exploded with headlines, each one more sensational than the last. Rumors circulated that the entire OTF label was under investigation, and that several high-profile figures within the industry were being questioned about their involvement in the conspiracy. It wasn't just about Lil Tim anymore. It was about everyone involved in the OTF camp and the wider music industry. The streets were on fire, with fans and critics alike demanding answers. The twist in the case wasn't just about who pulled the trigger. It was about who was really pulling the strings behind the scenes. Who stood to benefit from King Von's death? And why had Lil Durk, of all people, been drawn into this mess? Was he just another puppet in a game much bigger than he could have ever imagined? As the days passed and the investigation deepened, one thing became crystal clear. Lil Tim's shocking confession was just the beginning of a much bigger scandal that was threatening to bring down the rap game, one dirty secret at a time. But would the truth ever truly come to light? Or would the industry's power players continue to pull the strings, keeping their darkest secrets hidden forever? The stage was set for the next chapter of this explosive case, and Lil Tim had just opened the door to a world of corruption, betrayal, and murderous business deals. Stay tuned. This is far from over. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Lil Tim's explosive confession continued to send shockwaves throughout the rap world. No one could have expected the name drop that changed the entire trajectory of the case. Lil Durk, the OTF boss, the man who had always been Von's brother in arms, now stood at the center of this growing conspiracy. The legal proceedings were now about more than just the murder of King Von. This trial had turned into something much bigger, something that threatened to expose the underbelly of the music industry. But it wasn't just the court that was paying attention. The streets were watching, and they were hungry for answers. In the hours following Lil Tim's shocking statements, the media exploded with theories and accusations. The internet was on fire, with fans dissecting every word, every claim. Was Lil Tim telling the truth? Or was this just another desperate attempt to save himself from a lengthy prison sentence? And if it was true, how deep did the conspiracy go? Could Lil Durk really have been involved in Von's death? Or was he simply a victim of the same manipulation that had ensnared Lil Tim? New developments came fast and furious. Leaked texts, DMs, and phone calls that had previously been sealed were suddenly in the hands of the prosecution. Each new piece of evidence painted a darker picture, one where Lil Durk was increasingly linked to the events surrounding King Von's death. According to one leaked phone call, which allegedly took place in the days leading up to Von's murder, Lil Durk was having tense conversations with a number of powerful figures in the rap industry. In these conversations, they discussed Von's rapidly growing influence, his potential to overshadow some of the biggest names in the game. One of the most shocking parts of the call was when Lil Durk reportedly said, "If he's gonna be king, then someone else has to step aside. Either Von falls in line or..." The message was unclear, but the implication was undeniable. It seemed like Lil Durk was hinting at the idea of removing Von from the equation entirely. Lil Durk's lawyer, of course, denied everything. They dismissed the call as nothing more than a misunderstanding, claiming that it had been taken out of context. They argued that Lil Durk had no involvement in Von's death, and that the claims were nothing more than the desperate words of a man trying to shift the blame. But the public wasn't convinced. Fans were already speculating that Lil Durk was somehow involved, and the deeper the investigation went, the more it seemed like his name was connected to every step of the plan. As the trial progressed, Lil Tim continued to speak, each new revelation adding to the growing web of suspicion surrounding Lil Durk. The prosecution now had a new weapon: witness testimony from someone close to the situation. This witness, who claimed to have been in the room when Lil Durk and other key figures discussed Von's future, revealed that the conversation was far more sinister than anyone had imagined. According to the witness, the conversation involved plans to cut Von out, not just from the music scene, but from existence altogether. This testimony was a game changer. If true, it meant that the entire plot to take down King Von was not just about a single moment of violence. It was about a conspiracy that involved manipulation, coercion, and the destruction of one of the most talented artists in the game. The witness went on to claim that Von was being controlled by someone else, and that Lil Durk had been involved in orchestrating his downfall from the very beginning. The courtroom was in chaos as the defense tried to dismiss this witness's testimony as irrelevant. But the damage had already been done. The public was gripped by the new developments, and the questions about Lil Durk's involvement were only growing stronger. Was this the evidence that would finally take down Lil Durk? Or was this just the beginning of a much larger conspiracy? And then, as if the plot couldn't get any thicker, more leaks came in. One of the most explosive was a set of financial documents showing that large sums of money had been transferred between Lil Durk's label and certain underground contacts in the days following King Von's death. These payments, according to the documents, were made under the guise of business dealings, but the amounts and timing were suspiciously coincidental. Why were these payments made? And who exactly was Lil Durk paying? The financial ties between Lil Durk and certain industry players were being uncovered, piece by piece. These revelations painted a picture of a ruthless network, where money, power, and influence were being used to control the careers and lives of those who dared to rise above the system. Public reactions were swift and furious. Fans were now divided, with some defending Lil Durk, calling the accusations baseless, while others were turning their backs on him, questioning whether the man they'd looked up to was truly the one behind King Von's death. Social media went wild with debates, theories, and reactions. Hip-hop artists began to speak out, some denying the rumors, while others hinted at a truth that was too dangerous to speak aloud. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any crazier, a second witness came forward. This witness, who had worked as part of Lil Durk's inner circle, claimed that the OTF boss had been under immense pressure from industry heavyweights who felt that Von's success was beginning to threaten their own empires. According to this new witness, Lil Durk had been told that Von had to be taken out, not just to maintain his own position, But to maintain the status quo in the industry, the rap game had always been about power, who had it, who was willing to do anything to get it, and who could stay on top. But now it was clear, this wasn't just about street drama, it was about control over the culture itself. And if Lil Durk was involved in something so twisted, what did that say about the music industry as a whole? As more details came to light, the walls began to close in on Lil Durk. His once sterling reputation was now under intense scrutiny. The industry was shaking, and with every new revelation, it felt like we were on the verge of uncovering a massive conspiracy that could take down some of the biggest names in the game. Stay tuned, because the truth is getting closer, and this is only the beginning. Lil Tim's testimony has only scratched the surface. Who will be next? Who will fall as the investigation continues to unfold? The walls were closing in. As the investigation into King Von's death reached its peak, it became painfully clear that the truth was darker and more twisted than anyone had imagined. The first two parts of the trial had been nothing short of explosive, but part 3 would change everything. The truth was now a living, breathing entity, threatening to expose the deepest secrets of the rap game. And Lil Durk, once a revered figure, was no longer untouchable. With Lil Tim's testimony laying the groundwork for the conspiracy, the pressure on Lil Durk grew exponentially. His once loyal following was now divided. Fans who had sworn by him were left questioning his every move. And those who had supported King Von were furious. They demanded answers, and as new evidence surfaced, the case became more than just about justice for Von. It was about exposing a corrupt system that had used and abused the very artists it claimed to support. A fresh batch of leaked text messages emerged, and this time, they painted a horrifying picture. These messages, dated just days before King Von's death, were from Lil Durk himself. In one particularly chilling exchange, Lil Durk was seen arguing with an unnamed individual. The messages were cryptic but terrifying, with Lil Durk saying, "He's outgrown his usefulness. I'm not about to let him take my place in this game." This was not a street beef. This was business, the kind of business that cost someone's life. The messages pointed to Lil Durk's involvement in Von's tragic death. But it wasn't just the text messages that had the public up in arms. The financial transactions between Lil Durk's label and certain shadowy figures in the rap industry were becoming harder to ignore. A whistleblower within OTF leaked a report detailing large sums of money that had been paid out to various underground contacts in the days and weeks leading up to Von's murder. These payments, according to the whistleblower, were hush money meant to silence those who might have known too much. But the story didn't end there. Lil Durk, already under fire, now found himself facing an avalanche of legal and public backlash. Government investigations into his financial dealings began to pick up steam, with officials investigating whether his label was involved in any illicit activities. The charges ranged from money laundering to racketeering, and while no official charges had been filed yet, the damage was being done. Every new leak, every new witness testimony, painted Lil Durk as the mastermind of an elaborate conspiracy designed to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to his dominance in the industry. Public reactions were a mix of disbelief and anger. Fans of Lil Durk tried to defend him, calling the accusations false or misunderstood. But the growing body of evidence was becoming too much to ignore. On social media, #JusticeForVon became a rallying cry, with people from all walks of life demanding accountability for Von's untimely death. Celebrities, fellow artists, and even social media influencers began to speak out, condemning the alleged actions of Lil Durk and those involved in the conspiracy. As the investigation reached its boiling point, a new witness came forward with a statement that threatened to shatter everything. This witness was a former associate of Lil Durk, someone who had worked closely with him during the peak of Von's rise to fame. According to this individual, Lil Durk's jealousy of King Von's Success had been well known within the OTF circle. The witness claimed that Lil Durk had been feeling threatened by Von's growing influence, especially as Von's popularity began to eclipse his own. In a chilling interview, the witness revealed that Lil Durk had often spoken about the need to maintain control over the Chicago rap scene. The witness stated that Lil Durk had a kill or be killed mentality when it came to King Von's rise. According to the witness, Lil Durk felt that he had no choice but to eliminate the threat, even if it meant orchestrating Von's death. This was the moment that changed everything. The public's perception of Lil Durk went from admiration to disgust in a matter of hours. Fans who had once hailed him as one of the greatest to ever do it were now questioning every lyric, every move. Were the songs he wrote about the streets just a cover for his dark ambition? Was Lil Durk truly the voice of the streets, or was he a man willing to do anything to keep his spot at the top? As the pressure mounted, Lil Durk went silent. The media went into overdrive, and rumors of a possible confession began circulating. Would Lil Durk face the truth, or would he continue to deny his involvement in the crime? His silence only added to the suspense, leaving fans and critics alike on the edge of their seats. Would he try to spin the situation in his favor, or would the truth continue to unravel in a way that he couldn't control? Meanwhile, Lil Tim, the man who had ignited this entire firestorm, remained in the spotlight. His name was now associated with some of the most controversial revelations in the history of hip-hop. The public was still divided. Some believed him to be a pawn in a much larger conspiracy, while others saw him as the instigator of it all. Regardless, his words had set off a chain reaction that was impossible to stop. Legal consequences for Lil Durk were imminent. The court of public opinion had already found him guilty in the eyes of many. But what would happen when official investigations caught up with him? Would he be brought to trial, or would he find a way to cover his tracks and escape the fallout? The next few weeks would determine whether Lil Durk would face criminal charges, or whether he would continue to sit at the top of the rap game. Having dodged yet another bullet. As the drama continued to unfold, the world was left with a burning question. Was this the end of Lil Durk's career as we knew it? Or was he just getting started with his master plan to manipulate the system and come out on top? The investigation into King Von's death was now far more than a criminal case. It was a cultural reckoning. The rap game, which had always been about loyalty, betrayal, and power struggles, was now facing the harsh truth about the lengths some artists would go to protect their empire. This wasn't just about street politics anymore. It was about money, influence, and the price of fame. As the trial loomed closer, the stakes couldn't have been higher. And for Lil Durk, the pressure was only mounting. Would he be exposed as the puppet master behind King Von's murder, or would he escape the truth once again? Whatever happened, one thing was for sure: this case would shake the hip-hop industry to its core. The truth is out there, but the question is, who will be held accountable? Will Lil Tim's shocking confession lead to Lil Durk's downfall, or is there a much bigger game at play here? King Von's death has set off a chain of events that's shaking the rap game to its core, and we're just getting started. What do you think? Was Lil Durk really behind King Von's death, or is this just part of a much darker conspiracy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Is Lil Durk guilty, or is he just another pawn in a game of power? Let's get a real conversation going. Don't forget to hit that like button if you want more shocking revelations like this one. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over. We're following the investigation every step of the way and bringing you exclusive updates. You won't want to miss what comes next. Share this video with anyone who needs to know the truth behind King Von's murder. The truth is out there, and it's time for the whole world to see it. Stay tuned, stay woke, and let's get to the bottom of this. You know you want to see how this drama unfolds. Subscribe now. We're not done exposing the secrets of the rap industry just yet.